Dr. Pankaj Kumar to chair this important session on panel discussion. Rahul Bhattacharya. I request Dr. Pankaj Kumar to take over.
Thank you. A very good morning, respected dignitaries, distinguished speaker and panelists, delegates, my dear friends and colleagues. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to another very exciting and insightful panel discussion, the topic of which is understanding creativity, empowering everyone and every day. And till now, we have talked about the various dimensions and various facets of art and psychiatry. And this particular session is about the how to creativity can be used to empower. So whenever we think about creativity, the first thing which comes into our mind is somebody who is a very creative icon, like a painter or a poet or a novelist or a dancer or a musician. So we think whether somebody is creative or he is not creative. So these are but however, in everyday life, how the process of creativity is involving us. Whenever we engage in our day-to-day life, like whenever we are into solving any problem, when we are into navigating the relationship issues, whenever we are engaging into the connectedness, and when we are engaging with somebody in a way which is different as from our clinical encounters. In all these processes, we are one way or other involving some process of creativity. And whenever this creativity becomes more and more aware in our mind, and whenever we are starting accessing it more and more into our day-to-day life, how it empowers us as an individual, as a human being, as well as how it helps us being a person who is well connected with the self as well as to the outside world. With that opening remarks, I'd also like to introduce our distinguished panelists. They are not only the acclaimed psychiatrists, but they are also the creative icons in their respective field. So to begin with, our first panelist is Dr. Vinay Kumar, sir. He no longer needs introduction, but as a creative icon, his series of books and poetry, we all are aware. However, his deeper understanding of all various aspects of the creative field is well known to us. I would like to also welcome our second panelist, Dr. K.S. Pavitra. Again, she is a very well-acclaimed Kathak dancer and Bharatanatyam and creative writer, apart from being a good psychiatrist. On my left side is Dr. Rahul Bhattacharya. He has come from England. Again, he is a very good creative icon in the field of visual art, apart from being a well-acclaimed psychiatrist. So, and the moderator for all this is... okay. The moderator is Dr. Astha, who is the person behind all the show which we are enjoying for last 2 days and will continue to enjoy. She is also a multifaceted creative talent, a Kathak dancer and a poet, apart from being a good psychiatrist. So with that brief introduction, I now request our moderator, Dr. Astha, to start the proceeding of the panel discussion.
Good morning, everyone. I first of all thank all the esteemed speakers and faculty persons who are here with us on stage. We are here talking about this because the three psychiatrists that you're seeing, Dr. Vinay Kumar, Dr. K.S. Pavitra, and Dr. Rahul Bhattacharya, wrote a beautiful clinical practice guidelines, the first of its kind that was introduced in 2022 on creativity, understanding the neuroscience and the biology and the theory behind it. Dr. Vivek Benegal talked about the neuroscience of creativity. What we are going to talk about is there are various theories, from Professor Nancy Andreasen to various other psychiatrists who have worked across the world. So I'll ask Dr. Pavitra to introduce this topic and also share her own experience and begin the session.
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you, Astha and Dr. Pankaj, to open the topic. The creativity and my introduction into creativity was at the age of 6 when I was initiated into classical dance. And when I entered my residency at Nimhans as a young MD postgraduate, I happened to see dance as separate from mental health. And it was through my dissertation topic, which was creativity and mental health, a profile of writers and musicians. Then was the time when I started finding some interest in linking creativity and mental health. So, obviously, last 20 years into the field of creativity and mental health, exploring different connections. This particular, the panel discussion was to happen yesterday as a background to the whole conference, what is happening in these 2 days. And Dr. Vinay Kumar pointed out that the 4 people who are involved in this particular making of this conference should speak about how creativity has influenced their professional lives as well as, of course, personal lives as well. So with that, actually Dr. Ajit Bide was also supposed to be here today. So we are here to discuss from our personal experiences as artists as well as from our professional lives. This is not strictly a academic kind of discussion because some of us are involved in research too. But as Dr. Vivek Benegal very rightly pointed out in his presentation that when 20 years back when I was a resident, my senior resident used to point out that this is a very fringe area. All the articles you are taking of the creativity in the library, I've been looking at your Xeroxes and they belong to fringe area of psychiatry, and you concentrate on the core areas of psychiatry, schizophrenia, bipolar. So from there, we have moved on to a stage where in the recent Nimhans Alumni Conference, Professor Ravi advised the Nimhans administration to start 2 separate departments. One is AI, digital. The other one was humanities. So we have moved on to an era where the creativity was viewed as a fringe area to an era where creativity has become the necessity for every one of us. So with that, I would ask Astha to lead us on.
Thank you, Dr. Pavitra. My first question to Dr. Vinay Kumar is, creativity was once seen as a divine spark, possessed by few. Would you describe it as a cognitive emotional process? And what's the connection between spirituality and creativity? And can creative pursuits be seen as spiritual seeing?
I think it's very important to understand what was once considered domain of genius people. We are going to discuss all these things in the context of everybody for every day. So this shift, how this shift occurred, this has to understand. So let's begin with the basic concept of creativity in our culture, rather across cultures. So to begin with, almost all cultures, everywhere, creativity was a kind of divine concept. Only God can create. Everybody else imitates. And in Republic, it was so clearly mentioned that does an artist create something? And the answer is no, it imitates. So it was divine concept. In suppose if you go to Christianity or Judaism, what you see there, the concept is in Genesis chapter that let there be light, and there was light. Let there be X by Z, and there by X by Z. Let there be a tree, there was a tree. So God had a will, and God created everything. An Indian concept in Nasadiya Sukt, in Vedic Nasadiya Sukt, the description is darkness flows over darkness. No time, no sound, nothing, only darkness flowing all around. And then there was will of the God. Param Brahma. Brahma desired something and things started happening, what we call Big Bang. So now we call Big Bang, this is a different thing. But in all religious books, the mention is like that. So in Indian concept also, the same thing, that creativity is God's domain. But in Indian context, things are a bit different. After passage of time, when the mythology, all books of mythology started developing, new stories started coming in, and we started creating different gods and goddesses. Things started in a different way. In Indian concept, we have goddess Saraswati, who takes care of all creative component, all music, all flowing things. We have Vishwakarma, who takes care of engineering department. So this kind of division is available only in Indian concept. Another very important thing is, in Indian philosophy, the basic sutra was given by Abhinav Gupta. Abhinav Gupta was a philosopher and Shaiv Darshanik from Kashmir. Actually, they migrated from central India and settled in Kashmir. So Abhinav Gupta talks about this, and he says, Navanavon me shalni pragya. Anybody who is having awakened sapience can create something. So if even God has to create something, he should have kind of awakened sapience. God is not always in a creative mood. He has to enter in that. And if anybody enters in that state, becomes creative. So that's very important message, and that message for all of us, that some kind of awakened sapience is required for creativity. If you have that, you can create. And anyone can have that. So that is the message from the Indian philosophy. But this divine concept gradually got democratized. How it happened? If we think that an entire world, if we keep in our view, the most important thing which comes to our mind is the period of Renaissance. What happened in the Renaissance period? There was a kind of revival. They started interpreting their texts, older texts, in the context of human values. There was a movement of humanism, human-centering thoughts, and during that period, there were personalities like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, who were polymaths. They were engineers, they were poets, they were biologists, they were one person having everything. So then it was realized, philosophers of that period, that human beings can create, and whatever they are doing is a kind of creative thing. That was the reason Immanuel Kant defined creativity in a very specific manner, in which he says that creativity is genius's domain. It's unknown even to creators. What is the source? The imagination, and it requires imagination. And it's a kind of thing that human being can do, but definitely it's a work of genius. But this definition is not going to help us. So we need to think further. But what happened? Let's have a look on the development in the history. So one important development in the history is Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution changed lots of things. Lots of things. And then what happened? Democratic process started in the entire world. Though the kingship and all those aristocracy things started going down. So what happened? democratic ideas came in the play. And after that, digitalization. So if you think all these things together, this means from Renaissance to digital era, there is a kind of democratization where everybody can do something. In today's digital era, the situation is has changed drastically. All of us are creative now. All of us are putting something, some kind of poetry, some kind of painting, something in the space. So but this changed a lot. Another thing, this help in defining creativity also. The creativity which was the domain of genius has been redefined in a different way, because basically we have three types of definition of creativity. One is product-centric. In product-centric definition, what happens? The definition tells about that anything is creative product which is new, which is useful, which is task appropriate, and which has been used. The person who is creating has used imagination in doing all those things. So this is product-centric. Another is process-centric. The whole creative process, and I think this will be discussed further by some other participant. So I'm not going in the process, but person is important. Because when you create something, there is a change in you. You become a different person. So that is important for all of us. That definition is important for all of us, that the creative processes or the creative work is basically transformative. It changes you. And I think I should add the 4C model here. No? Pavitra? Okay, fine. So Pavitra is permitting to add the 4C model of creativity. Initially, there were only two types, because of I am not exactly in my mind that who is covering which area, but this is a very important area. I would like to cover this. Initially, what happened? There were two types of creativity the psychologists used to discuss. One is little c and then big C. Little c is all small creativities. A poet like me, a dancer like Pavitra, we all belong to little c. So in that definition. But and big C was about Einstein, Tulsidas, Kabir, Rabindranath Tagore. So all these people were big C. But Kaufman and Begetto rather revised the whole thing and they made it a 4C model. So the first one is mini C. What is mini C? Mini C is something which is for everybody. And mini C talks about transformation of the person. If you read a book, if you go to a museum, if you enjoy lots of awe, which was being discussed by Professor Benegal right now, so that if awe changes you, if you read a book, that book changes you. If you meet a person, listen to a talk, that changes you. So that's the creative process. That's the creative process. So that's for everybody, and that is the reason the creativity is important for all of us, even a person who is not creative at all. So even persons who are having low IQ, for them also, because some kind of even they can experience something if something pleases them. So mini C, then little c. Little c is everybody's everyday creativity. You are going to kitchen, you are going to your garden, and you see that the things are in disarray in your garden, and you decide, no, this should be like this. This arrangement should be here, plants here, flowers here, and like that. So that new arrangement can be you create a kind of more aesthetic scenario there. So that is creative. Secondly, you go to kitchen, whatever you find in kitchen, you make a good food. That is creative. So keep everyday creativity. So mini C is for persons at personal level. Little c is for small area in which you are living and operating. Then after mini c, little c, mini c, little c.
Dr. Rahul has the answer for it.
Big C, huh? Then big C. Okay. So, Pro C and then big C. Like that. Pro C is first. Pro C is third one. Then Pro C is third. So after that, what happens? The prosi. Prosi are those people who are doing good things in their working area. Suppose somebody is a good manager and who is doing things innovatively for the organization. Somebody is a leader doing good things for the country, some minister, some prime minister doing good things for the country. So they are at the level of prosi. Majority of good poets, majority of good dancers, majority of good painters belong to this strata. And the fourth one is big C, which people who can change the whole, they can influence kind of society across boundaries. If Einstein does some work, Einstein, whatever work he has done, influences the entire world. Leonardo da Vinci painting is creating awe in everybody who is going there. Van Gogh, whatever he has painted is valuable and awe-inspiring and pleasing to almost all people in the world. So this model is important, and in psychiatry, the initial two models are very, very important, and that these two, mini C and little c, are the thing where we work with our patients. So that is very important in this context. I think I finished this.
Thank you, sir, for your broad definition of creativity from person to product to the process. And that brings me to the next question to Dr. Rahul Bhattacharya. Creativity does not happen like a eureka moment. Well, it does. And the brain is working, as Dr. Vivek Venegal was speaking earlier about the default mode network. Brain is most creative when it's resting, but when it's resting, the default mode network is active. But we need to understand what's the process behind it. So we'd like to hear from you.
I think if I figure that out very well, I should go into the pro C and big C level, because that would need real thinking. I don't think we really understand the process. There are many hypotheses and thinking around it, and the thinking is evolving. Initially, I think the idea was there's two parts to creativity, and I think this is the possible fundamental thing for us to understand. One is the creative drive, or the wish to create something, and then there is the creative skill around which the performing or the delivery of that, which are two slightly different elements. But just having a drive and developing the skill itself possibly doesn't deliver the brilliance or the excellence around it. There is something that looks into the process, and this process has been looked into by neuroscientists, and there is a concept of looking into the process of default mode network, which you mentioned earlier, which is the blue sky thinking, looking into the horizon and letting your mind wander and then gather new ideas. But then there's the execution part of it, which does need a discipline and focus, and the frontal lobe does need to come in there, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex needs to orchestrate and the delivery of the task. But once you have the right balance between the task as well as the demand on the system, if that matches, rather than getting anxious or stressed about it, actually the frontal lobe then steps back and says, you can just carry on. And that's a really sort of blissful moment. There's the concept of ecstasy. Ecstasy is like a Greek word, and it's sort of very similar to this conversation that was happening. It's the Greek word which means you step aside. And that's the stepping aside, I think, is a useful concept, because you lose the perception of time. You carry on in the moment, and it's a blissful moment, and you perform in a moment of creativity. And this is sometimes defined as the flow state. There's a person called Mihai, and with a very unpronounceable surname, so I won't really try to bastardize that. He developed this concept of flow. And during the flow state, actually the frontal lobe steps back and let you carry on with the task, because your task and your capability then are in sync, and you're performing in a very sort of blissful manner where you no longer are bothered about your surroundings. You have stepped aside. And that is the awe, that is all the words that we're using. It's almost like a must. And you enjoy that, and that's really, really useful. But creativity itself doesn't always need to be artistic. I mean, creativity is problem solving as well. And a lot of discipline needs to go into it, and that's the pro-C element. Years and years of discipline, like Dr. Pavitra, you have practiced dance, and that takes a huge amount of dedication and discipline. So the alcohol that I was just catch the last end of the conversation might help you with the aha moment, but it has to match with the skill to create pro-C or big C. Yes, in the day-to-day level, you can have little bits of out-of-the-box thinking and problem solving, which are eureka moments for you, but they are not going to sort of be seismic works that will going to shake this room. For that, you do need the discipline and to carry on. Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing in this. Louis Pasteur, the famous biologist and important person in the history of medicine, Pasteur once said, when it comes to observation, chance comes to prepared mind. So prepared mind is important.
So, just add to that, I think each component of creativity, any discussion on creativity needs to be looked at from the artist perspective, from the psychiatrist perspective. Because from the artist perspective, when we look at it, the preparation, the hard work, incubation, all this become very different. They have different meanings. But when it's from the psychiatry perspective, they have different meanings. Because when I teach dance in my dance class, for me, perfection is important. I make sure that every movement is perfect. Every gesture is perfect. The expression needs to come in a definite way. But when I'm looking at it from a different perspective, psychiatrist perspective, the goals become very different. So the process of creativity also needs to be looked at that way. Otherwise, we lose very important benefits of art in the process. Because if we concentrate too much upon just the preparation, incubation, the hard work, the actual, the process, it becomes goal-oriented for the artist. But it needs to be process-oriented for a psychiatrist. When we are utilizing arts for therapeutic purposes or mental health promotional perspective, the process becomes important. So even if you just go to a dance class for 3 months, just sing for 3 months, there might be some benefits. So we need to look in terms of that, because the research needs to happen in these areas, not just looking at art as medication.
Thank you, Dr. Pavitra. My next question to you, Dr. Pavitra, and as well to Dr. Rahul, all of you, it's an open question. We have seen portrayal of creativity and people who are more creative, be more vulnerable. So I'm clubbing 2 questions here because I think we're running short of time. Is that, are certain traits more creative? And is there a link between creativity and psychopathology?
Rahul, who is this one?
Again, I think this is an idea at the moment. I don't think we have answers. I think people have looked into this, and often the process of looking into this is still in its infancy. It's often based on looking at individuals and then wandering around this question. What we know is certain conditions possibly have similar sort of neurobiological substrate which are influenced in the illness as well as in the process of creativity. And we have heard of the sort of dopaminergic discipline as well as the default mode network, which is non-dopaminergic, which is more parieto-temporal. And so in conditions where there is a dopaminergic involvement, there is sometimes a degree of creativity that has been looked into. And that's not creativity, that's more expression and doing things out of the box. And I think that's what we are talking about. And we know in sort of schizophrenia or bipolar affective disorder or ADHD, or generally in neurodiversity, there is a degree of dopaminergic involvement, and that might somehow associate with the doing things out of the box. That doesn't bring in the discipline and the process around it, but it does help you do things out of the box. And if there is a certain individual who has associated skills and interest in art, as well as the sort of dopaminergic sort of atypy, that will allow the productivity. But in others, it might not. It doesn't always, if you have some sort of mental illness, then you'll end up being productive. Because mental illness itself is a very sort of diverse and heterogeneous group of conditions that we are talking about. We are talking about in a coherent way because we as professionals have been taught certain conditions are our domain and we treat them. And creativity within that is, we are looking at different forms of art, and that's what we are possibly referring to when you are talking about creativity. And art itself is a huge range of expressions. There's visual art, which involves different parts of the brain, to performance arts, to kinesthetic elements, and then there is sort of music. There is other forms of creative tasks which are coming up with AI and all sorts of things. They would involve different parts of brain, and different mental illnesses will involve different parts of brain. So trying to bring these two together and thinking they are one things and have a clear linear association, I think we'd run into an error.
And I think the professional art pursuit versus non-professional art practice will have a difference. Because I've seen that, in my first study on creativity and mental health, where I studied professional writers and musicians, I found that, it was not professional writers and musicians. So there I found that, they were mentally sound. There was no increase in the rates of mental illness compared to the normal population. Whereas, when I studied later professional Yakshagana artists versus non-professional Yakshagana artists who just practice for their, just hobby, as a hobby, there was significant difference because the professional artists faced a different set of troubles altogether. They had, cancelled programs, difficulties in remuneration, then difficulties in actually, practicing the art form for their livelihood. And that exposes them for a higher set of stressors. So we can't say that, art itself is making them ill. Because see, there's a popular idea that, whether creativity itself predisposes them to higher psychopathology. So in that relation, I found significant differences between professional artists versus non-professional artists. So I totally agree with you that we don't have a definite answer even now.
I think we need to add because we are talking to our younger generation basically, and we need to make them understand few things. The important thing is that where I stopped in my first part of conversation, that creative genius. So genius word is always associated with that. So what happened with the passage of time, we developed the system to measure IQ. When this came, and this, as all of you know, this study was conducted in, final testing was done in Stanford, where Lewis Terman was working, and he added the name of university in the test, Bennett Stanford test. He didn't add his name. But Lewis Terman was intrigued with this, and he decided to carry out one study. So Lewis Terman did a long study. It was a prospective study. It continued for 70 years. And in the study, he had termites who were having IQ more than 150 and a control group. So after 70 years, the results were very discouraging, a negative study. The results were published in 6 or 7 volumes of book after his death, but the findings negative. Because in the whole lot, only 2-3 persons were award winning. So people having IQ more than 150 and creative personalities, only 2-3, just some award winning. Nobody is a person whom you call domain changing creators. The person, I think Rahul was talking about a person who gave the idea of flow. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Basically, he's a Hungarian. Now he died a few years back. Hungarian psychologist. He was working in US. And he wrote a book on creativity after doing research work for 30 years, in which he talks about lots of things, including state of flow and also about the domain-changing creativity. He says that to call anything truly creative, you need to have two things. One, the person who creates, then some gatekeepers who keeps eyes on the quality of things. In case of books, suppose I write a book and there are critique and editors and the publisher and then editors. So all these people are kind of gatekeepers, and then the review of the book is published, and then book goes to public in large, readers, and if that is assimilated and if that creates some waves, that becomes a creative product. If Emily Dickinson writes poem and puts in a box, that is not a creative product until published and accepted by the society. So this concept was given by him. So that was also a very important thing. But I was talking about initially that, I translate actually. So where did I start? I had, Lewis Terman. So Lewis Terman's study and finding was negative. So the question was unanswered and remained unanswered for years, till 1950, when Guilford became the president of American Psychological Association. In 50s, he was president of American Psychological Association, and in his presidential address, actually, his presidential address inspired me to give a presidential address on creativity when I was president of Indian Psychiatric Society. So in 1950, in his address, he talked about lots of things, including the concept of creativity and why we are not having more research. So he spent two observations in his talk. One was that we are not doing enough creative research in the field of creativity. Number two, in schools, we do not have curriculum which can inculcate creativity in children. So there were two observations, and that inspired. But he laid from the front, and he gave the idea of thinking that IQ is fine, okay. If you have IQ more than 150 in physics, you are a genius, fine, you can do good work. But to become truly creative, you need something else. And what is that? The answer was thinking process. And he gave the idea of convergent thinking and divergent thinking. What is convergent thinking? You have lots of problems. Some problem in Bengal, some problem in Bihar, some problem in there and there. And what is the solution? Solution is BJP at the center can solve all the problems. So this is concrete thinking. This is convergent thinking. That one solution to all the problems. You make a road in the village and all problems of village will be solved. So this is the kind of convergent thinking. But what is divergent thinking? Any problem comes and you start thinking about lots of things. That even this can happen, even this can happen, even this can happen. एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा जैसे ये किरण आई, जैसे यहाँ से हवा आई, जैसे धूप आई, जैसे चांदनी आई, and you keep on thinking this and that and that. So that is creative thinking. That is divergent thinking. That is fluid thinking. I would like to quote a couplet from Jigar Muradabadi कि एक लफ्ज़े मुहब्बत का इतना सा फसाना है, एक लफ्ज़े मुहब्बत का, one word love, and this much this story, एक लफ्ज़े मुहब्बत का इतना सा फसाना है, सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, when it converges becomes the heart of a lover, सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, फैले तो ज़माना है, and if you are thrown out, then it's the entire world. So सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, another couplet, beautiful couplet he has written, that कि जब भी फिक्र फरमाता हूँ मैं, रूह बन के जर्रे जर्रे में समा जाता हूँ. कि whenever I start thinking creatively, I just scatter and I become part and parcel of each and every particle in this world. So this kind of feeling. So this is divergent thinking, and this we need to inculcate in children. This we need to understand that are we thinking that way? And all these things can be, our brain is trainable There is a neuroplasticity. This can be done. Nancy Andreasen has written in her book, The Creative Brain, at length about the neuroplasticity, that yes, fine, things are basically, lots of things are genetically determined, but if you nurture things, that is also going to give good results. What if you are genetically genius, that's fine. That will decide the level of creativity. But you can become creative with the support also. So the way of thinking is important, and that was very important area, which I think I have added. Thank you.
Just wanted to add, I mean, this is pretty much the philosophy that has promoted UNICEF to accept creativity as a core life skill. So this is the same sort of philosophy that has been embedded in that document in 2018, that is thinking out of the box. But I think we are here for art, and I think art is a form of creation, but there are other creative endeavors, and I think that we just need to be clear. And in art, I think there needs to be two other elements around the creativity, which is a novelty element of art. Otherwise, it becomes purely a skill-based thing. And then there is an aesthetic element to it, which is beauty. And I think yesterday, Thomas Hoffman was speaking about the symmetry, but there might be other theories, whether there's a cultural bias to symmetry. And then there is the other element of skill. And at least one of them should strike a chord to the place. So the 4 Ps of creativity around person, place, people, there's the element of environment accepting and nurturing. So that's how, if you keep the art to yourself and it doesn't interact, then it doesn't never get the sort of real output of it. And as a profession, I think what we need to do is to create that environment of creativity, both for society as well as for our patients, as well as for ourselves, because we heard from ArtSig presentation yesterday how it helped Diego himself to cope with his stress of dealing with work. So it helps us, it helps our therapy as a patient and as a skill for the community, so we problem solve and create a generation who are open to creative thinking.
Atmosphere is very
There is
important.
science of
No,
art
location
and art of
is,
science.
just one sentence. Location is very important. You see, atmosphere is very important. During period of Renaissance, we have an address. We have address, Florence. Florence is the address of Renaissance. We talk about Bhakti movement in Indian poetry. There is address. If we talk about Sufi movement, Sufi poetry, there is an address. So there is always an address, some kind of geographical details. Some kind of geographical address. So atmosphere and support groups and peer groups and interaction, all the things are important, historically proven. So having a cohort, having a peer group for all these things is important. And this meeting aims towards that, to find like-minded people who can create waves.
Thank you all for such enlightening experience and beautiful answers. Creativity as a clinical skill, creativity in healing, creativity as a coping mechanism or a therapeutic process. For more information, and if you want to know what they were saying, you can refer to the Clinical Practice Guidelines, Creative Pursuits of Mental Health, published in Indian Journal of Psychiatry. Now we'll take some questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Two questions.
Put the mic in the center, please.
Though I joined late, sorry, but it was very interesting listening to the part which I heard too. I think two important things, particularly in our clinical population. One is the trigger for creativity. That has to be created. Any stress can lead to creativity. The first poetry, when Kalidas saw the arrow being on the swan and the first shloka came, that was the trigger. But more than trigger, what is important is the reward. आपने एक कविता लिखी, यू रोट ए पोइट्री, उसको वाह वाह नहीं मिला तो फिर वो पोइट डिस्करेज्ड हो जाता है. You did a painting, and if it is not appreciated. So reward, trigger is important. How to create trigger in schizophrenic patients? That is my question. See, the thing is, here is a withdrawn patient. For any creativity, you need to have a trigger. माशूक को देख के तो आप शायरी लिखते हैं ना, ट्रिगर है वहाँ, आपकी नजरें हैं आपका, या पेंटिंग आप बनाते हो, वंडरफुल सीन, लेट मी रिक्रिएट इट ऑन द पेपर. You went somewhere, wow, and you created this scenery on the paper. It was a trigger. But once the trigger is not followed by reward, it doesn't work.
So I'll just respond. It's a bit, for the discussion, I think the theory of flow has been already mentioned. So when people create, it is not just for the some award or something. It is the process itself gives them lot of pleasure, satisfaction, and that is the reason why people create. That is number one. Number two, it is a very popular misconception. Let me complete.
Clinical population.
No, I'm saying.
How do you address?
Yeah. I'm saying he will answer to that. And the popular misconception that Newton, when the apple fell down, then he found the theory of gravity, is all actually the misconception, because before 20 years before this thing happened, he was working on that, and there is a lot of hard work which would have gone. So the trigger can actually trigger the creativity only when they have worked sufficiently in that particular field. So I think when we look at the clinical population, it is quite different. When we work with schizophrenia, the patients with mental illness, the techniques will have to be very different. That's what I mentioned it as, the goal and process orientation are totally different. You might be, verbally reinforcing them. You might be giving verbal praise for the effort they are putting in. But it is not what makes them keep it doing. So they will have to, you will have to support them, help them find the experience of flow. So, this comes from my experience with working with different kind of clinical population. Of course, with dance. I don't have any other experience with, other things.
I'll share one thing. It's important. I remember the document which I was discussing, Constant Psych, published by WPA in 2002. President of WPA during that period was Ahmad Okasha. He might be your friend, sir. Egypt, yes. Ahmad Okasha wrote the presidential kind of address, presidential write-up for that, in which 4 things he mentioned about the purpose of art, combining with psychiatry, in which he writes about that understanding psychopathology is important. I'll share 2 things I'll share here. I had a patient of schizophrenia. He was studying in NIFT daily, and I asked him, during that period, I was under awe of art and creativity kind of thing. So I said to him, so draw something and show me. He gave me a bundle after 7 days. There were sketches of person, draw a person test kind of thing. There were the sketches of person, all from behind, and there was no face, obviously. It was from behind. Hairs were sparse, at times long, short, but in all, buttocks were very prominently displayed. Then I said, I would like to talk to you further. So I have gone through it. Well, I'll come tomorrow. Okay, fine. He came again. Then I started talking to him. And after cool inquiry, I kind of free association. I said, okay, fine, you take time. Clinic was busy, but I said I had to take time. Then he accepted he was sodomized in childhood. So it's a first-hand experience. Coupled with that, art brute is the concept that those who are novice, those who do not know about art anything, those who do not practice art, and you ask them to draw, they start drawing something. Okay, he's drawing, he's copying, who's copying? So lots of material is available on internet in which schizophrenic patients have drawn. And they have painted horrors, they have painted hallucination, they have all kinds of auditory and all. So everything is there. So it's not about what we have to do. We have to initiate, that's all. Initiation is important. Trigger is required for creative art, that is different thing. But that is important. And appreciation is okay, but high level creativity, big C or pro C creativity, probably you do not want appreciation. Emily Dickinson wrote, and only 3 poems were published in her lifetime. And all poems are world class. One thing. Then Mukti Bodh, Hindi kavi. कुछ कविताएं आई, एक किताब उनके मरने के बाद प्रकाशित हुई, चांद का मोतियाड़ा, और बाकी सारी 6 volumes, everything published after his death, but everything is of world class. So that is important. Appreciation is important. When you write, you don't need appreciation, sir. When you just realize that I have expressed myself, that is the biggest satisfaction. Being a poet of 7 books, I have experienced this, and I confess before my colleagues.
Interesting discussion. My response is to Dr. Vinay Kumar's talk about the study of intellectuals and creativity. To my mind, the creativity is a balance between intellect and the mood. Without a particular mood, you cannot create. With high intellect, you can create, you can make inventions. But to create art, you need the backup of your mood. And if you have highly intellectual, your creativity gets curtailed because you think of logic. When you are thinking of art, your logic has to go down. Even only then you can create. That's my take on.
So I think maybe one clarification we need to have in our mind. One is the creative self-journey, and one is creative therapies. Creative self-journey is absolutely what you described. But when you're thinking of therapy, it's more the journey that matters. And our role as professionals is to create the environment which is safe, which to allow the journey. And it's a bit like the CBT hot cross bun, really. I mean, where you do things you enjoy, and doing things give you back the pleasure. You don't wait for the right environment to start doing things. The process of doing things allows you to bring in new things on the table. It can be content related, like Dr. Vinay Kumar mentioned, or it can be purely process related and just connecting with the person to be able to articulate emotions or things which they haven't been otherwise been able to articulate.
I would suggest that all of us revisit Terman's study, Louis Terman's study, because intelligence and creativity, there are very interesting findings in that study, which was a very long study, prospective study. So there are answers to Sir's question as to how much intelligence is required, how much creative there can be, because creativity doesn't just get confined to artists. It also includes scientists. So one of the Nobel laureates who failed to achieve the Terman's, study, the cutoff for study, later got the Nobel Prize. So high intelligence is not required, but above average intelligence is required. But there are a lot of other components which become important. So I think his study needs to be revisited after this discussion, and it would give us a lot of interesting facts. Thank you.
I'd like to add here. A very relevant and pertinent anecdote I would like to share. In 1938, 3 persons were admitted in the Department of Urdu in MA course in Aligarh Muslim University. One was Janisar Akhtar, another was Mazaz Lakhnavi, and third was Safia. who later became Akhtar. Janisar Akhtar, Safia Akhtar, father and mother of Salman Akhtar, whom you were listening yesterday. So, and tomorrow you will also listening. So what happened? Majaz Laknavi dropped out. And his poem is the anthem of the university. Janisar Akhtar, award-winning poet, famous lyricist and genius. And Safia Akhtar performed little. She is a prose writer, but not that famous. But what was the result in the college? Safia Akhtar topped. And the award-winning poet of Urdu, Janisar Akhtar, stood second division, got second division marks in MA Urdu. And Majaz Laknavi dropped out. So keep all these things in mind. This anecdote will tell lots of things about the creativity, intelligence, and performance and other things. And if I add, Majaz Laknavi had bipolar disorder and was alcoholic.
Thank you so much for your beautiful answers. I thank Dr. Rahul Bhattacharya, Dr. Vinay Kumar, and Dr. K.S. Pavitra. I now hand over the mic to our chairperson, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Astha, and yes, definitely, this has been a mesmerizing and very, very enlightening, at least for the younger psychiatrists who are sitting here. So just because lots of things has already been told, I'll just try to summarize key messages for young psychiatrists from this particular panel discussion. That creativity is something which is an important life skill. So there is, in your life skills, you must try to have every day some kind of mini C or little c. That can be very much transformative. And as a society, we must inculcate the environment of creativity in different aspects of our educational system, healthcare system, and everywhere. And little amount of creativity in everyday life can change the way we perceive our self-identity, the way we connect to ourselves and we connect to others, and enhance our well-being. And creativity as a process is more important so far as the therapeutic value of the creativity and mental health issues and well-being is considered. These are the important key concise message for young psychiatrists to understand. With that little note and message, I'd like to end this session, and I'd like to once again thank all our fellow panelists and all our participants. Thank you.
We request Dr. Vinay Kumar, sir, to honor the chairperson for the session, Dr. Pankaj, sir.
Thank you.